principals, today we're talking about architect in the AI and schools, right? And so I want to ask you just a question. Is AI shaping your school right now? Or is it just happening without your leadership or knowledge? So over the past years, AI has been moved into I'm curious to a daily tool that is used by not only teachers, but students, right? And so whether we planned it or not, it's here, it's inside our buildings. And sometimes the conversation may be happening without you. So here it's all about leadership. Principals today are not just managing the building. Now we are trying to be these architects of learning in our new environment. So today's conversation is about AI and how are you intentionally designing it and how's it supporting teaching, learning, and your school culture. So we are seeing the shift of moving from the margins to the mainstream in just a very short time. AI kind of sat on the margins, right? Especially when it comes to education. Teachers may have experienced it, quickly, quietly, and some of the leaders weren't sure on whether should we ban it, should we ignore it, what's going on here. But I think that movement pretty much has passed. Now we are moving forward. Today, it's become a part of our everyday fabric, our everyday culture, even our workflow for teachers and students and leaders and administrators and superintendents, right? And so that changes the role of you, which is the principal. In the past, principals were, we approve this type of technology, kind of reviewing the purchase orders, maybe approving software, and then sometimes signing on new initiatives. But now that expectation is truly different. Principals are becoming the architects of how AI operates inside of the school, inside of the ecosystem, right? And that means guiding it, guiding teachers on how they're using it, guiding students on how they interact with it, right? And so really thinking about how your school maintains that academic integrity while still embracing innovation. And to just be honest, here is the reality of AI adoption. Whether it is formally adopting or not, people pretty much, like I said, are already using it. Around 70% of teachers report using generative AI for personal use and work. Now we know high school students are using AIs regularly, and that number continues to grow, especially when it comes to college, right? And so many principals are now experimenting with AI in their own leadership tasks. So the question people are asking is should we allow it? But not the real question is how should we guide our staff and our students to use it that strengthen learning, rather than kind of weaken it, right? And I see some schools are kind of taking it head on, but some leaders are kind of doing nothing. So I'm all about that map life, right? Mapping AIs into your school ecosystem, right? And so when we think about AI in schools, we have to think about kind of this map and see it through these major areas, right? First, instructional innovation. How can I help teachers lesson plan, differentiate instructions, right? Create all the resources more efficiently. And then second is what does it look like for student support? AI tools, how do we personalize this practice, right? Feedback loops so students can pretty much work at their own pace. And then third is our school operations, which we know are kind of old and outdated, but all behind the scene works that kind of consumes leadership time, from scheduling, the data, the reporting tools, right? And think about when it's used thoughtfully. We know AI doesn't replace, but it kind of can reclaim teacher and educator time to focus on, student building relationships and true instruction as well as leadership. And I think that is where the real power is. Now it's where do you position AI, right? And so think of it as a, collaborative co-planner. One of the most practical use cases right now is planning partner. Teachers are using it to really unpack standards, to draft the lesson outlines, to generate formative assessments, even thinking about differentiated text, building substitute plans quickly. Oh my God, I've seen that multiple times. But kind of thinking about what is that key message that we want to give principals. AI is not the final decision maker. You still need a human interaction, right? And then think about professional judgment remains so central in these ideas. And so AI not only accelerates the routine and the work, teachers, of course, can spend more time on what matters, and that's building relationship, analyzing student learning, and giving true, meaningful feedback. Now we're talking about scaling personalized student support, which we love, right? One of the most things that we can think about as a promising area for AI is personalized student support, right? Right now, you're seeing about 1/3 of teachers that are already using personalized learning experiences to a certain extent. And these small systems pretty much can, provide additional practice, give small chunks of feedback, maybe offer explanations for students to revisit things multiple times. Even students who need help, maybe repetition or continued scaffolds. These tools can be powerful for that. But again, technology does not replace the human. Now we're talking about streamlining behind the scenes and operations. Leadership that time is often consumed by all these operational tasks, from the email, the different reports, the meeting notes, right? And the communication, the drafts, the professional development, all the planning, and it continues to add up very quickly. So many principals are using AI right now to, summarize meetings, to even draft communications before it's sent out, prepare professional learning experiences, even analyze school data, right? These routine tasks become faster, and more importantly, when it happens, you kind of gain your time back, especially that time for instructional leadership. And so that's the true outcome that we are looking for. Okay, so we have these three buckets, right? To help schools truly think about strategically AI integration, we can organize them in these three pillars. One, instruction, accelerate lesson planning, differentiation, spend more time with student analyzing work, right? Two, of course, the student support. How can AI personalize learning, writing support, help different progress students at different learning speeds? And three, the operations, right? Efficiency through data dashboards, communication tools, and scheduling support, right? And so when we as principals think of this leadership intentionally, it aligns with all of these three bucket areas. AI becomes a coherent school strategy, not just kind of these scattered tools. So now we're racing. We're racing to close the AI policy gap, to be honest, right? And so this is one of the biggest challenges that I kind of see right now. Students are already using it, but only 1/3 of schools have kind of guidelines or policy of its usage, and that kind of gap creates a leadership risk, right? Without clear expectations, school face questions around academic integrity, of course, the data, the policy, the ethical usage, the equitable access, right? And so I think principals, this is your time to lead here by kind of establishing these thoughtful policies and guide responsible usage at your school. So this needs training and professional development. So now we're talking about redefining academic integrity. So AI is kind of pushing, schools, districts to kind of rethink academic integrity, right? The traditional model was pretty much students complete the work independently, but AI has changed that whole idea, right? Instead of focusing only on catching up or misconduct, schools are really helping students understand, what counts as acceptable support when you cross the line into academic dishonesty. And most importantly, teaching our students how to evaluate resources, think critically about the content, acknowledge that you had the AI assistance, and really demonstrate their own understanding, right? This becomes a part of that digital citizenship and ethical technology usage. So I'm all about that action step, that life, right? Establishing your vision and your guardrails, right? The first step of leadership thinking is, what do I need to do to establish vision for AI at my school? How does this support instructional priorities, right? Is this going to be helping teachers? Is it going to provide better feedback? Is it going to reduce my workload as an administrator? Is it improving student support, which is what we want, right? And I think it's very clear, we start with guardrails, and those guardrails it not only protects you as a leader, but it protects student data and privacy. And then, of course, I'm all about the equitable access. So thinking of what this vision looks like with guardrails, it kind of gets rid of chaos. And so we want to keep moving towards this idea of leadership. All right, action step number 2, co-design with transparency. I'm all about that co-design, right? You're not doing it by yourself. One of the biggest mistakes school leaders make is introduce technology with the top-down approach. Mandates you must do this, right? You're going to get resistance, so we don't want that, right? So thinking about this AI implementation, how does it work best? It works best when you co-design with the school community. So we're talking about all the stakeholders. We're talking about the teachers, the students, the family, the IT leaders, your legal team, hello. And so when all your stakeholders are present, that really forces this total movement, right? And transparency helps schools address the concern about, data privacy, algorithm bias, and, even thinking about responsible usage. All right, action step number 3. Okay, so thinking about this shift from demos to AI literacy, right? So many schools are starting with AI training by demonstrating some of the tools, but tools are morphing quickly, right? And so what schools are really working to develop is this AI literacy component, right? Educators and teachers, we all understand how AI systems work and how they're generating responses, and we know that biases exist. And so how do we kind of critically evaluate the outputs? And so when teachers and students are developing this deeper understanding about AI, it becomes more like a thinking partner versus kind of, this is the shortcut, let me just give the output and give the answer. Now, number 4. So this moment is about education, but it's bigger than technology, right? It's about that leadership, right? And so thinking about how schools treat AI as just another tool, they will definitely be left behind because, the schools, they're built on our, internal systems around AI that will ultimately shape teaching and learning, and you will definitely see it evolve. And kind of that's how, leadership evolves as well. And last but not least, thinking about shaping the future, that's what we are doing, shaping the future of learning and leading. So AI is not a temporary trend. We know it will be around for a while. It's become a part of every fabric that we are seeing in our society, from designing instruction to kind of managing the operation of our system and even supporting students. And then we know technology doesn't transform schools alone. Our leadership does. And so when principals, they combine that clear vision with the guardrails and student learning as the center of it, they do more than just kind of manage this. They are shaping how this next generation learns, works, and plays in this AI-driven world. And that's power. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, DM me. Talk to you later. Bye.